Hi there, and welcome back to another Beer and Rant video where I drink a beer and rant about a movie that has pissed me off. Today's attitude is brought to you by What the Huck. So I have no idea what the public opinion of this movie is. I have given it nary a Google. Is that a is that a thing that people say? But literally from the opening scene, the live action How to Train Your Dragon had me ranting internally. I went into it with a pretty open mind. I thought it was kind of stupid for them to be making it, but my husband's friend had gone to see it in theaters, and apparently he said that it was pretty good, so I was trying to remain optimistic. But when we turned it on and the opening scene was just a shot for shot remake with the exact same opening script as the original, I just started getting angry. And as the movie went on, I was just going, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. When I was discussing it afterwards with Mr. Ronnie, he was saying that with remakes like this, people want a shot for shot remake, which this basically was, but that's not what I want. And it's all about what I want. Of course, I don't want any major changes in the story or with the characters' personalities, and let's be honest, usually looks, but it also has to be different enough to justify its existence. What am I getting out of this that I didn't already get out of the animated version, but better? There are certain scenes or specific shots that you want left in because they're iconic, but other than that, it needs some originality, or what's the point? When it comes to live action remakes in general, I'm kind of split on them. Specifically, when it comes to the Disney princess remakes, I get the appeal because the princesses are so beautiful and they have these iconic, extravagant dresses, and it's really neat to see that be brought to life. I was actually really excited for the live action Aladdin because Guy Ritchie is one of my favorite directors, but I was pretty let down by it. The costumes were to die for, though. But ultimately, I get why the princess movies are getting the remake treatment, and I get the appeal. But when it comes to things like The Lion King, there really is no point. Why would I want to go from watching a fake lion to watching a realistic ish looking fake lion? And How to Train Your Dragon falls somewhere in between these for me. I get wanting to see the characters, costumes, and sets brought to life, but the movie is also largely centered around cartoon looking dragons. This whole thing is just better suited for animation. They kept the dragons looking pretty much exactly the same way they did in the animated version, which is to say, they still looked like cartoons. So it just doesn't really feel right in a realistic setting. Kind of a repeat of the whole Sonic the Hedgehog problem when that movie came out, however many years ago. If you change the creature to look more realistic in a realistic setting, people are going to riot and be like, that's not toothless. But by keeping the original design, he just looks like a cartoon dragon in a realistic setting. In my opinion, if you're going to make a live action How to Train Your Dragon, make the dragons look realistic. It just would have looked better to me. I don't think they made the wrong decision here because, like I said, I'm sure people would have been really angry if they had changed the dragons' designs, but that's just what my personal preference would have been. I've really never been a big fan of mixing cartoons with reality, a la Space Jam. I also feel like because of the aesthetic disconnect between the dragons and the characters, it's a lot more difficult to feel their emotional connection. The animated How to Train Your Dragon literally makes me tear up because of the love between Hiccup and Toothless. The scene at the end where Hiccup falls and Toothless dives after him gets me a little misty, I'm not gonna lie. But the remake did not get me there. I really didn't feel that powerful connection between these two, and I feel like part of that is because your brain is just registering the fact that these two aren't actually interacting with each other. Like, you're very aware that they don't occupy the same world. Yeah. And while I think that is a big portion of the problem, I also think that the acting is a bit of the problem here. I think Mason Thames is a decently talented actor. He's only 18, which actually surprised me a bit. I thought he was older. I didn't love his performance in this, but I also don't think it's really his fault. It seemed like for the most part he was trying to keep his delivery as close to Jay Baruchel's as possible, but maybe about 20% of the time he was trying to put his own spin on it so that it didn't come across as a blatant ripoff, which I commend him for. But because most of the dialogue is lifted word for word from the original movie, any difference in how it's delivered kind of spikes something in my brain as just being incorrect. Jay Baruchel also just has such a distinctive voice that trying to fill that role is kind of a losing battle, anyways. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. If he puts his own spin on it, then he's not doing it right. But if he does it exactly like Jay, then he's basically plagiarizing. I also just feel like Hiccup's physicality is better suited for animation. Like, everything else about this movie. Someone who I think could have actually pulled off the physicality of this character would have been Dylan O'Brien. I know he's too old. I'm not trying to say it should have been him. But if you've seen a few Dylan O'Brien movies, you know he just acts so much with his body. Like, he puts all of himself into it. So in that sense, someone who is such a physical performer like Dylan would have been great for this. As for the other characters, it kind of feels like they were purposely casting actors who looked as far away from the animated characters as they could. And this isn't about Nico Parker being cast as Astrid. I know that was a whole thing, but she actually looks a lot like Astrid, features-wise, and even her body type. And as far as acting chops go, she was definitely one of the better actors on this project. They kind of messed her up in the writing, but we're not there yet. Tough Nut at least looked almost exactly like his animated counterpart, so props to them for that. But why did they make him and Rough Nut redheads? They're blonde in the movie, and as someone who went to hairdressing school, I highly doubt that that is their natural hair color. So what was the point of making that change? Were they just trying to piss us off? I thought Gabriel Howell was probably the best cast for both his physical similarities to Snotlout and his ability to portray the character faithfully. He did an excellent job. And I like Julian Dennison. He's a really funny guy, but he did not pull off the character of Fish Legs. Harry Trefaldwin and Bronwyn James, who play Tough Nut and Rough Nut respectively, neither of them had the acting chops to pull off these aggressive characters. In all honesty, these types of characters are just better suited to animation because real people don't act like this, and that would have been a really difficult thing to pull off. Gerard Butler is definitely the strongest link here, especially given that he also played Stoic in the animated version, but even the essence of that character is, say it with me, better suited for animation. As for what I said about them messing up Astrid's character in the writing, they sloppily threw in this little side plot of her wanting to be the next chief, which in my opinion is kind of a big deviation from the original in kind of a detrimental way to Astrid's character. Astrid is driven and a little cold at first, yes. She's highly competent and has a desire to be the best, but she was never scheming to become chief. In the original, she was really happy and supportive of Hiccup when his dad told him that he wanted him to be chief. And I realized that they were already a couple at this point, but it was really nice to see her being so supportive of his partner, confident in his ability as a leader, and understanding of his own doubts. I love a healthy on-screen couple. They've kind of boxed themselves into a corner by making this change in the remake, because now if Hiccup ends up becoming chief, Astrid is obviously going to have some jealousy and complicated feelings about that. But I suspect that if they do continue with making the sequel, they'll probably just go full girl boss, and Astrid will end up becoming the next chief and not Hiccup. So it's probably a moot point.
It's like a cow's opinion. Doesn't matter. It's moo.
It just felt unnecessary to me. It really felt like a box that they were trying to check off. Ultimately, the live-action How to Train Your Dragon left a lot to be desired for me. It did not instill me with any of the emotions that the animated original did. The casting was very hit or miss, and while I think they were trying to capture the same whimsy as the original with their costumes and set designs, it just ended up looking cheap. The combination of the cartoon-looking dragons and the realistic setting kept me from feeling any real kind of connection between Toothless and Hiccup, and I didn't really feel one between Hiccup and Astrid either. All in all, I don't think this is the worst thing ever made, but everything about it was already done better in the original, and let's be honest, it's just better suited for animation. That's going to do it for today. I would love to hear your thoughts on the live-action How to Train Your Dragon down in the comments. Maybe we can get into a fight about it. Please give this video a like if you made it all the way to the end, and consider subscribing if you love movies as much as I do. Get my little camera stand there. If you like this video, you should also watch this video that YouTube is recommending for you. As usual, I don't know where it's going to be, but it is around somewhere.